وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Today we are having parent-teacher conferences in which parents have a chance to meet with their teachers and check up on the progress of their children. And teachers are trying to give feedback in regards to what areas are very strong for that student, what areas need more work, and what things can be done at home to enhance the child's learning in different areas. This connection between parents and teachers for the sake of the development of the child is a very powerful one. It's a very old one and it's a very powerful one. When children sense and understand that our parents and our teachers are working towards the same thing, it gives them clarity in what they're supposed to do, and it also gives them a sense of security. Feel free to turn those off before you come into the masjid. Inshallah, adhan will take place at its time. So, children will feel a sense of purpose and also a sense of security that the people around them, the elders in their lives, are committed to the same goals, the same objectives. Conversely, if it ever happens where in the child's mind the teacher has one set of goals and expectations and the parents have another set of goals and expectations, you can imagine what that will do to the mindset of the child. The mindset of the child will be divided, and ultimately they will be put in a position where they have to take sides as to whose goals they're going to follow, whose instructions they're going to follow. And it's not a pleasant position to put our children into. Sahaba radiallahu anhum used to bring their children to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and request the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's permission for the child to stay with them. Like in the case of Anas radiallahu anhu and Sulaym radiallahu anha, his mother brought him to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and she said, "O Prophet of Allah, this is my son Anas. I would like him to stay in your company and do some khidmah if you allow, and just to allow him to be around you." And the Prophet ﷺ granted permission. So Anas radiallahu anhu, he stayed in the blessed company of Rasulullah ﷺ for the next 10 years, serving him. And he got to see many things that other people might not have been able to observe. But he understood why he was there. He was there to be of service to the Prophet ﷺ whenever possible, but also to learn from him. And a lot of the learning that happens, it happens through observations. Children observe their parents and they observe their teachers. And it is from those observations that they absorb a message. They take a message based on how we are acting and how we are managing ourselves and responding to certain circumstances. That actually becomes their education. The primary foundation of a child's education is what they are shown and what they see. And to some extent what they hear, to some extent what we tell them also. But this relationship of between students and their teachers, it's very unique, it's very special and beautiful. And as educators, when a child comes to us, we see it as a great trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is imparting to us, and our mind starts thinking of how do we look after this trust, how do we nurture this, how do we deal with this student in the way that is going to be most beneficial for them in dunya and akhirah. It's a huge trust. But for the parents and the teachers to be on the same page in regards to where that child is to go, this is extremely important. And for the parents to recognize and realize that we are not just sending our children to learn certain pieces of information, but we are also sending them for their formation, for their development, for their tarbiyah, as we say. Like Imam Malik rahimahullah, Imam Dar al-Hijrah, his mother used to tie an imama on his head, and she used to dress him in the clothing that scholars used to wear at that time. And she would instruct him that go and sit in the majlis of Rabi'at al-Ra'i, who was the great tabi'i scholar of Medina, one of the great fuqaha of Medina. And she said, go sit in his majlis and learn his akhlaq and adab before you learn the knowledge that he's disseminating. Learn how he behaves, learn how he presents himself, how he holds himself, his manner of speaking, his manner of dressing, his manner of addressing people according to their status, and his manner of running that majlis of ilm, and how he behaves in general. Learn that before you start learning the information. So one of the things that's extremely important for us as parents and as educators is to provide a child with an environment that they can observe and learn the right things. And perhaps this is one of the greatest challenges in education, to create an environment around the children that allows them to learn through observation and through experience, instead of just learning by being told what to do. If any of us as adults, we had to be told what to do at every step, we would not find it a very pleasant experience. We don't like to be told what to do at every single step. We don't mind some general instructions. We don't mind someone laying out a roadmap that, okay, this is the way that you have to work, and then let us figure it out. Show us people that are doing it. Let us observe the system. Let us observe things in action, and we'll figure it out. Children are very much the same way. So just like these teachers are meeting the parents, and the parents are meeting the teachers, and this feedback is being exchanged, it's also important that the environment of the home and what the child is exposed to at home, it's also in sync, it's also in harmony with what's happening and what they're being taught at school. Because at school, they're not just being taught information, they're being taught values, they're being taught behaviors, they're being taught how to speak in a certain way, what language is acceptable, which language is not acceptable. They're being taught all of these things. They're being taught what types of relationships are acceptable, which type are not acceptable. What do gender relations look like in Islam? What are the limits of decency? How is a Muslim supposed to use their gaze? How are they supposed to use their tongue? How are they supposed to use their ears? Earning and spending. All of these things are taught. But if the student comes out of that environment into a completely different environment or into a conflicting environment, then a dichotomy, a conflict is created in the mind of that child, and they are faced with this decision to either choose one or the other or try to reconcile. But the end result for most children is confusion. And at the end, because we have nafs and we have shaitan attached to us, all of us do, so then we will go with our temptations, we will go with what's easy or what's more fun, what's more enjoyable. But that partnership really between parents and teachers, irrespective of where your children study, that relationship needs to go to the next level, where it's not just exchange of feedback and communication, but the children are witnessing the synchronicity and the harmony between what they're being taught at school and what they're being shown at home. It needs to match. And this is crucial, this is essential for building that healthy individual overall. We don't just want children with minds full of great information, we want children to be emotionally and psychologically healthy. We want them to have a good mental health and good emotional and social health. We want them to be functional members of society. We want them to be citizens that contribute to society. But if the whole time they're just trying to resolve conflicts in their minds and trying to reconcile and objections keep making their way into their minds, it's very difficult for them to grow in that direction. So that's the responsibility of both people. It's the responsibility of those who have assumed the position of educator, and it's also the responsibility of those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in the position of parenthood. The communication needs to be clear, and the message needs to be uniform. There needs to be a uniformity in that message, and in that way, just like Anas radiallahu anhu, he was never exposed to a counter message. In fact, he was living one message. He was put in the care of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so he is now seeing the behaviors and mannerisms of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's hearing the ahadith as well, but he's also observing the dealings of the Prophet alaihi wasallam. Similarly, Sahaba radiallahu anhum, after the Prophet ﷺ used to send their children to other Sahaba, to stay in the company of those Sahaba, so that whatever they had acquired from Nabi ﷺ, they can impart it to these children. And like that, the next generation did the same thing. So the Tabi'is, one of the things that made the Tabi'is so amazing was not just that they were hearing hadiths from the generation above, but they got to live with them and see them and interact with them and actually see the implementations of Quran and the prophetic teachings. And then the next generation did the same and did the same. So if we have a system where we're conveying information from the previous generations, but we're not conveying that life, holistically we're not conveying that life, then what we're giving to the children is incomplete. And that's something for all of us to really think about. How can we all be on the same page so that the children are given an environment that they're immersed in? Whether they're at school or at home, both environments are kind of talking to each other and in line with each other, so that the child doesn't have to grow up with conflicts in their minds or hesitations in their minds, or, may Allah forbid, even worse than hesitations. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make the arrangements for the ta'aleem and tarbiyah of our children, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect them and protect us as well. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in.